Republicans in Iowa will caucus Monday to decide who their state will support for the presidential nomination. Meanwhile, the candidates are making their last-minute appeal to voters. Ron DeSantis' campaign manager was on America Decides yesterday and discussed if Iowa was a race for first or second place. Take a listen.
But James, does doing great mean beating Trump, or does it mean beating Haley, coming in second?
Well, listen, I don't think this is a must-win state. I think we've got a really good shot. But look, the media has written us off for dead. They've written Ron DeSantis' obituary. The projections range from losing by 30, 40 points. And I'll just say this. I think there's going to be some big surprises next Monday, and we're going to be celebrating.
Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne join us now. Leslie is a CBS News political analyst who served in the George W. Bush administration. Joel is a CBS News political contributor, Democratic strategist, and chief communications officer for Move On. Leslie, we just heard the DeSantis campaign manager say Iowa is not a must-win state. Look, we know that there was somebody who came in fourth in Iowa back in 2020. Anybody want to guess who that was? Mm-hmm. He happens to be sitting in the White House right now.
Iowa has a bad track record of picking,
right.
The winner.
So, I mean, is he accurate?
Look, so Iowa's big role, right, is winnowing down that field to look at viable contenders. And I would think if you argued 6 months ago, Governor DeSantis looked very strong. He was putting a lot of effort into knocking on doors, hundreds of thousands of folks that he was able to, do with retail politicking. But as he did that, I think a lot of people started making different judgments about him and whether or not he was right. He did a lot of positive things, and he has done positive things, get that evangelical support. We know Iowa's more conservative in that vein. But Donald Trump came back and kind of countered that with over 100 endorsements from faith leaders. So from an evangelical conservative base that really winnows down these candidates, Iowa has a strong role. But DeSantis has slipped considerably since that high mark. And it's going to be a wider gap between them when we see the results of Iowa next week.
Joel, from the Democrats' point of view, does it matter who comes in second?
Oh, that's a good question. I think typically, to Leslie's point, there's a few tickets out of Iowa. This year, I think the hope is on the Republican side, there'll be 3. I do think DeSantis has to finish at least in second place. That's the theory that his campaign has put forward, that they can be an option B to Donald Trump. And I think in order to do that, they have to finish in second place. I think if he doesn't finish in second place, it's really hard to see him going forward. And you asked about kind of Democrats' perspective on this. I'll just tell you, just talking to Democrats, I think the longer this primary goes, the better for any Democrats, including the president. Because it makes Republicans spend more money and it makes Republicans put more stress on their coalition to pull a winning coalition together for November. So I think most Democrats are rooting for a longer primary. And if DeSantis is able to get one of those tickets out of Iowa, and let's say Haley finishes strong in New Hampshire and extends the primary, that's better for Democrats.
So go ahead, Leslie.
Well, I was going to say an interesting part to Joel. I respectfully disagree with my colleague in the sense that I do think these hardy primaries are important to challenge the candidate. That's kind of been the argument on the Democratic side, right? As nobody has really felt that Biden, who's seen as a weak president, can be challenged, and you don't hear that echoing publicly on the Democratic side. Republicans are going mano a mano and having this out, and you're seeing the floating and swinging back and forth of people they thought they would like early on, even on the debate stage. And as we get closer to actual voting, voters are really sophisticated and can decide for themselves. So it's a rigorous process, but it's an important process. And I would argue that, yes, we do spend a lot of money, but they raise a considerable amount of money. So that test is really important going into the general.
So, Leslie, what about Chris Christie leaving the field and an endorsement which hasn't come for either of the candidates, either the remaining candidates? How much could his endorsement offer in terms of support for either Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis? And I know that I suspect if you're going to suggest that it's Nikki Haley who benefits, that would track because Ron DeSantis, by a lot of people, is seen as a Trump stand-in, whereas although Nikki Haley has been reluctant to criticize the former president, at least as far as moderates are concerned, she doesn't seem as extreme, for lack of a better word, as perhaps DeSantis is. I don't know. I think Democrats would disagree with me. Democrats would say they're all the same, but, you tell me.
Republicans Republicans may disagree with some of that. The interesting part about that, so DeSantis looks a lot like Ted Cruz in 2016, right? He's going to get that base of probably faith leader support. Nikki Haley has always drawn the appeal from people who are moderate, independent. That's why she's doing incredibly well in New Hampshire, for example, and closed that gap. There's a lot of agreement that she's at the top of the ticket if you're looking for that moderate candidate, in the middle that can bring people together. Counter that with the fact that that's a small percent of Republican primary voters. Majority still are aligning with the former president. So her appeal is college educated, suburban, white, and older. That's, again, a smaller base that's going to continue to be able to be supportive going into the primary and to win a general. That's the challenge Nikki Haley has.
Joel, let me ask you about this. So Joe Manchin is going to be in New Hampshire holding events today, kind of like a discussion kind of forum. Part of his message, he says, is about moving more towards the center. But what's your take on what he's up to?
Oh, well, you just talked about him. So that's what he's up to. Talking about him because he likes attention for doing things. I would posit if Joe Manchin wants to see somebody move to the center, he should look at the occupant of the White House, who he sat with and wrote a piece of legislation that it's called the Inflation Reduction Act that Joe Manchin wrote in his office, which is kind of the main thrust of the last year and a half of the Biden administration. And, I think a lot of Democrats, certainly respect for Joe Manchin being a Democrat that can win in a state like West Virginia. But he's clearly got his own national political ambitions that he's teasing out. But I'll tell you, a lot of Democrats wonder whether or not those ambitions are just to get more opportunities on Sunday shows and more mentions by venerable journalists like yourself.
All right. Leslie Sanchez, Joel Payne, you guys have a great weekend. Thank you.